which consisted of 5 independent and original members of the technical expert committee, they had unanimously said that India should not opt for herbicide tolerant crops. For those of you who don't understand herbicide tolerant crops, it is a technology by which the crop has been genetically modified to withstand a deadly chemical. The main crop will remain intact and the weeds in the field will get killed, right? So it essentially means that the crop has now learned to absorb chemical residues and survive, and there will be downstream effects. Those residues will reach consumers, there will be soil impacts, beneficial organism impacts on bees and so on and so forth. And it also has the implication of women, poor rural women not finding adequate employment in agricultural fields when more and more farmers start using this kind of weed killers. Now the TEC had said unanimously, remember the TEC had 2 Government of India nominated experts who also, along with the petitioner, nominated 3 members. All of them together said India should not have herbicide tolerant crops. And this GM mustard is a herbicide tolerant crop. Point number 2. This technical expert committee said India should not dabble with any crop for which we are the center of origin or diversity. And for mustard, we are the center of diversity. India is one of the centers of diversity, which means that we are endangering global humankind's heritage of that kind of diversity by tinkering with genetic modification. And they also said moratorium on BT food crops. In addition to that, the TEC said many different things. In the Supreme Court, Government of India is saying that we are already implementing the TEC recommendations, ignoring the fact that the main recommendations, HT crops, no in India, GM in crops for which we are the center of origin, no in India, or diversity, no, and BT food crops, moratorium. They are not implementing that, but the government is going on telling Supreme Court, we are implementing TEC report. That's the first falsehood that is being told in the Supreme Court. Point number 2. They are going on telling the Supreme Court for years now that GM mustard is not a herbicide tolerant crop. So we asked them, on what science are you saying it? Because a gene called BAR gene, the minute you insert it into a plant, it becomes resistant to a particular herbicide. So how can you say that it is not herbicide tolerant? The government is giving specious arguments in the court and outside, saying that, look, Dr. Paintal and Delhi University Center, they have not applied as a HT crop, therefore it is not a HT crop. This is utter lies. I mean, this is bad science of the worst kind. You don't determine whether something is a herbicide tolerant crop or not based on the description that the applicant is giving. Science tells you that the genetic modification and what genes went in and what new characteristic has come into the plant will determine whether it's a herbicide tolerant crop or not. This BAR gene of Dr. Paintal and his team has actually been tweaked in a manner that it expresses much larger protein of herbicide tolerance than usual BAR genes elsewhere. So it is clearly been created as a herbicide tolerant crop. Dr. Paintal and team have published scientific papers showing that they are interested in developing HT crops. There are published papers. And here the government is telling the Supreme Court, because the applicant only called it hybridization technology, this is not a herbicide tolerant technology. And the government knows that the minute that it accepts this to be a HT crop, the Supreme Court TEC recommendation will come into the picture,